Typically, IT professionals are consumed with the what and the how. No one really questions the why, but not for our guest of this episode of Passion Chasers. He was always a rebel, and the university he attended, RMIT, accentuated his ability to question the why. This rebel with a cause is the current CIO at Tech Mahindra. He is the founder of Makers Lab, an innovative R&D setup at the company, a TEDx speaker, and not to mention author of a book, Courage, the inside story of an innovator's breakthrough. Welcome, Nikhil, to Passion Chasers. We are thrilled to have you here and learn from your experiences.
Hey, thank you so much, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Honestly, I'm unsure where to start. You have accomplished so much and different things that you have done during your journey. Where did this study abroad thing come to your mind, and why did you decide to study abroad?
So I finished my engineering from Pune. The year was 99, and suddenly at that point in time, specifically India had a very different structure of jobs, and I didn't want to do that particular job, even though I would have gotten a job with started off with things in a company or whatever. And I was an electronics engineer. I didn't have computers, didn't have computers at that time. I realized that, and this was more of an injunction from my maternal uncle, who said that you should rather travel abroad and see the world as well, and study rather than just staying in India. And I think that was, and again, I'm telling you, I had no inclination. I had not decided Australia. I had no clue. It was just that initial crux that happened between us and that talk that said, look, should I travel abroad and study? Should I look at the world? So we started finding out universities, US and this and that. And I suddenly, I had a close friend who said, look, Australia is really cool, right? You should go there. And you should definitely be in Melbourne. So I said, look, Melbourne's got so many universities I've checked. And we didn't have Google like the way kids have these days. We used to go to IDC events, and we used to go to IDP events and say, look, these are the universities coming in, Monash, this, etc. Suddenly, somebody said, I found my friend over there, and he said, look, I've studied from RMIT. He was slightly older to me, and it's a great university. I said, okay, then it is. Being rebellious also gives you that impulsive nature. And he said, look, RMIT is going to be, I'm going to do my studies in Australia, and that's why I landed up in RMIT.
So this is year 2000. You have gotten admission for MTech in
Yeah,
RMIT. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, what was your first impression of Australia? Because you had not gone there before. You may have certain expectation. You have just landed in Australia. Do you have some stories from that time?
I think when I landed in Australia, it was more of a jet lag, but uh, um but I was kept in. I don't know whether people today remember, but near to Queen Victoria Street, there's an inn. It's called Motor Inn, and I was kept over there for the first 2 or 3 days. I remember going over there and asking the lady at the counter, saying, "Look, my room's ready or not, and stuff like that." And she says it'll take some time, and I remember dozing off in the seat at that point. And I remember three Indian hands coming to me and says, "Boss," and asking me the question in Hindi, "Boss, नया है क्या?" I said, "Boss, yes, but यहाँ पे ragging नहीं चलेगी." This is not the new stuff that we're trying to do. So we became the best of
Oh
friends post
wow.
that. And that was the first reaction. And then we, of course, traveled around, looked at the streets, and it was one of the first reactions that I had coming to Melbourne was the tram.
Yeah.
And we had always heard about it that Kolkata had those trams.
Yeah.
But to see them in that orderly fashion run on the Melbourne streets was one of my first
Yeah.
good reaction about where I've landed. And I said, this is the place, right,
Yeah.
which I can study and do whatever.
100%. Yeah, I love the tram so much, and especially in the CBD today, like it's free. We don't have to
Yeah.
pay anything, especially when we are traveling in the CBD. I personally believe that international education has the power to change lives. Like the reason why I'm saying that is because while growing up in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, I had barely two major religions here, and the same skin color, the same language, right? And that's still 23 years of my life, and I didn't even know something existed because that itself is so much, right? Still 7-8 million people in Ahmedabad. What learnings did you have from studying abroad? What was like some of the major things that you carry on even today?
Yeah, no, no. I think you said in your introduction. I think one of the things was it accentuated the idea of saying that you can fail. I think that's very, very important for us to realize today, even in our economy and the way we are in India. It actually taught me the principles that it's okay to fail. Sometimes what happens in India is we are too close knitted and close bounded in saying, look, if there's a failure, he's considered an outsider or a person who's actually not in the line or a queue. But I think Australia and Australian education really taught me how failing is also considered not as a failure but a feedback. And I failed quite a number of times. There was a lot of feedback that we got, right? Whether it was in your education, whether it was during your time when you were working, even when you were trying to look for a job in Australia, there's a lot of failures that comes to you as feedbacks. Number one. Number two, Australia taught me the idea of number one, Melbourne's amazing for food. So if you're a foodie, you would actually love the way you would get into now conversations saying, look, we used to have souvlaki if you had Dave over there. That's one of those things that you can bring back to India as well. So your cuisine really improves, right? As a person, you improve in your cuisine and your taste as well. And third, of course, is the multicultural hotpot that Melbourne is, right? You meet people from almost every part of the world. You'll have Greeks, you'll have Lebanese, and you'll have stories around it. But I think you meet those cultures,
Yeah,
you realize what's different about them.
yeah.
And I think that is so, so important in
And
life.
it broadens your overall horizon and your point of view towards just like all nationalities and everything. So my next question is: you attended RMIT almost 2 decades ago. From your career
Yeah.
trajectory, I can only say that things have worked out for you. But with so many options available to students to pursue IT now, would you still
Yeah.
recommend Melbourne and RMIT? And if so, why?
But my reaction would be biased, Dave. I am biased towards Melbourne. So I would always recommend Melbourne, right? Anyway, in fact,
I love
I
that.
would send my kid to Melbourne as well. I I have got that little bit of a home-based streak, right? My second home seems to be Australia, and I'm still connected. I'm still connected in a very big way. I'm working with, of course, Tech Mahindra as an organization has a branch over there, and we work with businesses. But I've got friends, I've got people that connect to. So Melbourne's always going to be cool for me. And my biased reaction would be that Melbourne was one place that taught us, or actually gave me the idea of a homeliness or a home outside the home. And that's why I would always recommend Melbourne.
Yeah,
It was always like that for me.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I agree. And Melbourne has something from something for everyone, right? Whether if
Yeah.
somebody's into sports, it is the sports
Yeah.
capital. If they want a corporate life, every major company in the world is situated in Melbourne.
Is in Melbourne.
Yeah, and if we want to live outdoorsy life, well, that's Australia in general. I want to dive deep into your career and most importantly your thought process, right? So the stage that you're at right now, you didn't start there. It wasn't handed to you. It's like, oh, here you go. Like now you're, CIO. So I want to know what did it take? Like if you look back at your own journey, what are some of the things that you did right that I can apply or the audience can apply in their life today?
Yeah. See, one of the things that I followed, and this was also the culture, the nature of the book that I wrote.
Yeah,
I was number one. I never thought what the other person's talking about me.
interesting.
I think I shut that portion of my mind, and I continuously followed a passion in the heart that I had to do something. And I think that is something
Yeah,
which, of course, I got from my family, from my upbringing, because I was a rebel and my father and mother allowed me to do
yeah,
so, but also from my education in Australia.
mm,
When I was, and I think I told you, I made a game for Crown Casino, and the game went live.
yeah,
I could actually touch and feel things, and I could say that, look, computers is not just about typing on a piece of hardware. It's also about creating things that help society, right?
love
Or
that.
maybe helps a business and something like
Yeah,
that. I think that is something that really stuck on with me,
mm,
and that has been my principle in terms of why and how I approach everything.
mm,
If my heart permits,
mm,
and if there's absolutely not a iota of doubt in the heart,
mm,
and even if your mind's wavering, I tend to follow my heart and say, look, if I want to do this, let other people counter question is people would keep saying
mm,
things. You've just got to follow it through.
mm,
And that's for every young person who's actually going to Australia trying to study.
yeah,
I think it's your heart that really talks the truth.
Mm,
Your mind tries to push out, it tries to rewire your
mm,
psyche based on the environment that you are. So just follow your passion, and I'm sure people would succeed.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you, Nikhil. It sounds perfect, and I want to do it, but I'm really scared. It's not that easy, you know.
I think it's easier said than done, but I think I've managed to do one thing over my life. I've actually taken the first step, Dev.
Okay.
That's really helped me. I have fallen.
Yeah.
It's not there that I have not fallen. It's like a hunky dory life.
Yeah.
You would fall,
Yeah.
but I think it's that courage, and I don't think I can explain or you can explain that courage to anybody who's trying to do this.
Okay.
It's your first impulse and instinct
Yeah.
that allows you to take your first step. The first step is going to be yours. Trust me.
Yeah.
There is a group of people and an ecosystem that will support you post
Yeah.
that. But I think that first step needs to be yours. And I think what I did
Yeah.
was whatever I liked, I did that first step.
The question that I want to ask you: what is your why? Why does Nikhil Malhotra wake up every morning to solve what?
To solve a problem that how humans and machines can collaborate better. And that's my why.
Okay.
And that why can change if you ask me about 10 years down the
Yeah.
line. But the current why for me is how can humans and machines collaborate better to actually create a much more inclusive world? And that is my why today. And there's a lot of work that we are doing in these
Yeah.
regards. So we do a lot of research in terms of algorithms, of
Yeah.
course, but we are also looking at Sanskrit in terms of how it can actually be the guiding glue for us.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I loved every bit of this podcast so much. There was so much to learn personally for me, and I'm sure audience had to learn a lot as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's a pleasure.